Lanarkshire Council. So they're both the sort of so I always get a fright when she tells you about the recording. It's such a loud voice. Yeah, so there's two. So we will just look at how to find them, and then I'm going to go through actually what are the questions that you need to answer. How do you go about doing that sort of thing? So I'll jump between a couple of different screens, and Fran always says if I say I've moved forward and you don't think I have, it's probably your system, but it's probably me that's forgotten to move forward. So just let me know if I'm telling you that I'm sharing something that I'm not sharing. So I didn't see anybody say they've not registered, but just to be on the safe side, it'll take 2 seconds just to show you how to do that. So every time you want to know about a contract opportunity, you will always find that advertised on Public Contract Scotland if it's above £50,000. So this is where you want to look for contract opportunities, and we're just going to go into the search notices section. And I'll just very quickly show you, because I think probably most of you are registered, but just to be on the safe side. So we're going to just type in the buyer's name here. No, it's not worth Lanarkshire though. And we're just going to find those tenders. If it's going to be a bit slow actually tonight. There we go, North Lanarkshire Council. So if we just search North Lanarkshire Council, and obviously if you were searching for other opportunities, you might just search taxi or bus or whatever it is, and those would all come up. So these are all the different tenders that North Lanarkshire's got out at the moment. But if we just go down, so we've got these two at the bottom. So they're both for ad hoc transport. One is for minibus and coach hire. The other one is for taxi and private hire provision. So I've already registered interest in the coach hire one because I needed to do that to be able to, for me to go in and look how you were going to have to bid for this. So I'll just register for the taxi and private hire one. And I'll just show you what you would see when you click into that. So sometimes in Public Contract Scotland, you see a little register interest button. But in this case, you've got this blue box, and it basically just says we're going to be using a different website, a different portal to facilitate the tender process. So the really important thing that you need from here is the project code. So for this, it's 30453. And then you will just, that's you done everything that you're going to do on Public Contract Scotland. So basically all you're doing is finding the opportunity on there, and then everything else is done within PCS tender. So I'll just go over to PCS tender, and then I'll share that with you. So hopefully you're registered on PCS tender as a business. Just exit, I'm already logged in. If you are not, there's just a little button underneath the sign in button, and it just says register as a supplier. You would just click that button. You just agree to the T's and C's. And then it's asking you to provide some information about your business. So this is all information that you'll know. It's all about who are you, what's your address, and all that type of thing. So when you save that, you'll then just get an email confirmation. You click on that, and that's you've got your PCS tender profile set up. Excuse me. But I'm going to go back because I've already got a profile, and I'll just log in. So hopefully you guys are all at this stage where you've got your profile set up already. And just let me go back to me. Right, sorry, a little bit of jumping around there. So assuming you've got your profile on PCS tender, you're just going to sign in. And then within the ITTs, under projects, the third one down, ITTs, you just click into there. So what you'll see is there's two tabs. There's one which is My ITTs. So if you've already registered interest, you'll see the tender in there. If you've not, you're just going to click into this ITTs open to all suppliers, and then you just have to select project code from this little drop down box. and then you're just entering the project code into that value box. So then now we've found that opportunity. I would always say use the project code, because if I come in here and I search for the buyer as North Lanarkshire, for some reason it doesn't come up. I don't know why. So the project code is really important. So if I just click into here, and then all you're going to do is express interest. So it's just this little blue button on the right hand side. And then you just confirm that. And then we're just going to go back out to my ITTs. So I've got quite a lot in here because I'm working on a few different things at the moment, but you'll just hopefully just have the one that you've registered interest for, or any other things that you've maybe already submitted bids for. So I'm going to go actually into the minibus and coach hire one, just because that's the one that I've already downloaded all the documents for. But for both of these tenders, so some of you might supply both of these things and you might be bidding for both of the tenders. Some of you might just be bidding for one of them. So we'll just click in to that. So because you've now registered interest there, you now have got access to the buyer attachments. So you can see that there, and that is all the documents that you need to download and read, and some of them you need to fill in order to submit your tender response. And I'll just go back out quickly and show you. Oops, didn't mean to go back to the main menu. I'll just quickly show you something else. And if you've already registered interest, you'll probably be aware of this, but just to make sure you know, the other thing that you've now got access to because you've registered interest is the messages functionality. So you'll be able to see any messages that have already been sent. You would be able to see them within the received messages. So this is questions that people have asked already and the authority has responded to them. So it's worth having a look in there to see what questions have been asked. It might answer some of the questions you've got when you read the documents. And then really importantly, if you've got any questions about anything in this tender process at all, this is where you would come. So you can't contact the council directly, you can't pick up the phone and speak to anyone. You need to submit it through this Q&A, what do they call it, message box. And what happens in that case is if you ask a question, they have to share the answer to that question with everyone. So when they answer it, it then goes into this received messages. So everyone will be able to see what was the question that was asked and what was the answer to that question. And the reason for that is just to make sure that everybody's got access to the same information. So, for example, if you had asked a question about the pricing schedule, a bit of it wasn't clear to you, and then they only gave you the answer, you could then be at an advantage compared with other people because they've not got that information. So it's just all about transparency and making sure that everybody's got the same opportunity and access to the same information. So I would really encourage you to use this function. If you've got anything at all that you're not sure about within the tender, also if there's anything in the tender where you think, I don't quite meet that requirement, but we don't really agree with the requirement, you could then use the Q&A function to say, we don't think you should be asking us to do this, or whatever it is. You can challenge that through this post box as well. But hopefully everything is nice and clear for you, but don't just assume anything. If you're not sure, just ask. So I've done it again, haven't I? I always do that. Go right back out of the ITT. Maybe I should show you how to not do that. Let me just go back in, sorry. It's a bit annoying. So you've got the buyer attachments, you've got the message functionality, and then the other thing that you've got is this is basically your response. So you can see, you can see here the things that you need to complete are the qualification response and the technical response. So to go in and start filling those in, you click in to those blue buttons, blue text, sorry, that's going to take you into that qualification envelope. And that's where you're going to answer those questions. And it tells you here, you've still got 59 questions that you need to answer in that section. And then the technical response, again, it tells you how many questions that you still need to answer, and we'll go in and have an actual look at those. But I think it's quite helpful because you can see how progressed you are. If you tried to submit your response and you had one mandatory response missing, it wouldn't actually let you submit your response. So it's quite good in that way as well. It doesn't know if you've submitted a good or a bad response, but at least knows that you've submitted all the things that you need to submit before you actually put your tender in. So hopefully that makes sense. I am just going to then run through some of the attachments. Does anybody have any questions about any of that so far? Are you all following okay, despite my jumping around the page?
Yeah, it seems to be. There's nothing in the chat, nobody's wee hands up. So yep, it looks good.
I'll take silence as a good thing. So if we go into the buyer attachments section, so I've already downloaded all of these documents and I'll go into some of them. But this is where you're going to find out what is the actual requirement that the council has, what is required of you to submit a tender response, what's all the things that you need to give back to them, whether it's signing documents, whether it's providing a written response, and they're also going to tell you how they're actually going to evaluate your bid once they receive it back in. Other things, the terms and conditions, and there's various different forms, such as the form of tender. So there's lots of different things to look at there, and we'll sort of work through these as we go through tonight. The invitation to tender, I'll just actually open some of these up. Give me a little second. I'll just share some of these. So the invitation to tender document. So that is the sort of main document. I don't know why that's so small. This is the main document that basically says this is what this is for, and when it was issued. And it's got some key information. So it's a bit of background about what it is that they're interested in procuring, what is the timetable, what is the procurement process, and just a sort of overview of how the framework's going to work. And then there's various different annexes which go in, to a bit more detail. I'll just take a quick look at some of those. So all of them are quite important, but I'm just going to pick out some key ones. So we've got the details of the requirements. So this is setting out, what is it that's actually needed here. So for this one, obviously, it's the minibus and coach hire. And it gives you an explanation of, all about North Lanarkshire as a council area. What is the aims and objectives of the framework? How long the framework's going to be in place for. So that's probably information that's quite important to you. It's going to start in May next year and it's going to be in place for 4 years. And it sets out some of the requirements that are going to be covered in there. It then goes on to talk about the framework value. So it's 1.6 million over the 4-year term. Sometimes that's a question that's asked, is that per year? The contract value is over the whole period of the framework. And then it gives you a breakdown of the different lots and the estimated total value for each lot. So again, that value will be over the whole 4-year contract period or framework period. And then they're just explaining how they're actually going to then call off from that framework once it's in place. So the framework provides an overarching framework, yeah, that's the right word. And then the actual contracts, we call them call-off contracts, they are done within that framework. So it explains a bit about how that's going to work. So the important thing really here is you get a good understanding of what actually is this opportunity going to look like, how much value is in it for you, depending on what lots that you would be interested in going for, and how would you potentially be allocated work under the framework moving forward. And then it goes in a little bit more detail about the service requirements. So what actually is it that they're looking for you to do? So, and then there's all different legal and licensing requirements and things like that that you'll probably be very familiar with. But it's just really setting out the exact requirements that they have, including things like the PVG scheme. Okay, I think that's probably all we need to look at on that. Let me just close that one. And as we go through the actual sections within PCST, these things will make a little bit more sense probably in terms of how they all fit in to the puzzle. Don't think there's any specific ones we did. Another one actually, sorry, that's really important for you to understand is the evaluation document. And again, that is just setting out what do you need to provide to them for them to consider your tender. So there's a qualification envelope and there's a technical envelope, and you saw that within the PCST, those blue underlined text. And it's just explaining how that process is going to work. So they're going to look at the quality and the price, and they're going to come up with an overall score on that. So the price part is, I need to check, was it 60%? We'll be able to see that when we go in to PCST. And the other really important document is the quality questionnaire. So this is what you're going to submit under the technical response. Excuse me.
Mandy,
so this is
Kevin waiting
yeah.
Just to quickly ask you a question, if that's okay.
Kieran,
Sorry, did I say wrong name?
yeah, go ahead.
Kieran, I've sent over the request to unmute, but the question seems to be around, does the framework replace contractors SPT normally administer, or is this for through the DE work?
So this is it's for additional work, isn't it, on top of the existing arrangements, I think is my understanding.
Yeah, mine too. I don't know, Kieran's not coming off mute, but I assume that's what the question was. But if I can get Kieran back online, I'll get him off mute as quick as I can. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think the key is that it's the ad hoc part of it. So there'll be sort of like sort of standing routes already in place, which are under a different contract. So this is more ad hoc stuff that they're interested in here, is my understanding. So in this quality questionnaire, this is basically where you're going to do the written part of your tender submission. It's the bit where you get the points for the quality part of it. And it explains here, this is actually a really good tender, because sometimes you've got to look around in all different sections to find this information. But they've basically explained here what are all the questions that you're going to have to respond to, what are the weightings for those questions, and then what is the word count for those questions. Sorry, was someone trying to speak there? Just got weird. Was it just me that got a weird noise? And it is 40% on the technical quality side of things, and the price is 60%.
Yeah, sorry, Mandy. Kieran is also mute now. Kieran, do you want to come in?
No, I think you answered that. It was whether it was SPT work for morning and afternoon, but you've established that it is for through the day as well, which is that was my question. Thank you.
Yeah. It's just more the ad hoc. Thanks, Kieran. If you've got any other questions, just jump in. It's nice to hear people's voices instead of my own sometimes. So yeah, just going back to the quality questionnaire part. So it lets you know what is the weighting for each question and what is the word count. So the word count is important because if it's 1,500 words and you write 2,000 words, they're only going to read the first 1,500 words. So, so stick to that. The word count also reflects the level of detail that they want from you, right? And it ties in with the percentage values for the weight. And so the more highly weighted the question is, the more words they're going to give you. And the community benefit offering one at the end is there's no word count for that because you're just selecting from that menu. So they've just given a wee bit of information, and this is actually where you're going to fill in your response. So for each one, they have given the headline, which is also mentioned in that table above with the percentages, and then they've given more of a breakdown in terms of what they actually want you to answer within that question. So we'll not necessarily go through all of these one by one, but the key thing that I would say is make sure to read the question and make sure that where we've got these headings, I would structure your response around those headings to make sure that you're ticking every box that they're asking you to cover. So like you could write an exceptional response on the first 3 points, and then you could forget to write something on the maintenance side. You're not going to score well on that question, even if the rest of it is absolutely brilliant, because you've not covered all the points. So if I was evaluating it as a buyer, the very first thing I would do is, does it cover all the points? Right, it ticks that box. Then I'm going to look into what is actually the quality of the response. So yeah, addressing the question is very important. So what I'll do is I'll go into PCST now, and I'll share my screen there. The other thing actually, sorry, that I was going to just mention is what I always do when I'm planning out a tender is I mean, so you guys might have like fancier ways of tracking stuff, but I basically just make a little spreadsheet. This is just one that I'm working on at the moment, but I'll literally just list out everything that's needed to be able to submit the tender and who's going to do it, how long is it going to take. That's something I find helpful. And obviously when I'm working with clients, so that I can calculate my time that they need to pay me for, I need to be able to do that anyway. But just to give you sort of an idea of maybe how much time you want to plan, we normally say for per page about 4 hours when we're writing a response from scratch. So that maybe just gives you a bit of an indication in terms of how much time you want to dedicate to filling in that quality questionnaire. It is going to be days rather than just a couple of hours at your desk sort of thing. And I think that's the bit that most people underestimate, the time that's required to do that. So that might just be a wee top tip for you. But I find it helpful just to have like almost a checklist, and we can tick everything off as we go through that checklist. PCST does that for you to an extent. As I've said, you know, if you've not filled something in, it wouldn't let you submit. But that's what I would be doing once I've read all the documents. And then I am just going to go back. I think I'm going to end up going into the main menu again, haven't I? I don't think I know how to go back actually without going into that main menu. I would maybe need to get myself on a training course for that. But I'll go back in. So assuming we've read all the attachments and we understand what it is that we need to do, and we're quite happy that we do want to submit a response for this tender, you're then going to actually go in and start creating that response. So again, these blue underlined word in the qualification response, if we click into that, that's then going to take you in to all the things that you need to complete for that qualification section. And some of it's drop down boxes. You can see here there's a date box. Some of it is free text, and some of it you need to upload documents, but it'll be clear at each step what it is that you need to do to answer that question. So the first question is just about, have you read the supplier response guide? That's just to make sure that you can't say we didn't understand how to do it. And when did you read that? And then we're going to go down into the single procurement document. So this is starting off with just information about your business. I'm not going to explain this because I'm sure you understand it. Just all about you, what's your address, what's your company number, all those things. And I'll just scroll right down past that because I am sure you know all that information about your business. They also want to know what size of organisation you are. This doesn't have any bearing at all on whether you would be awarded the contract or not. So you could be one guy, or you could be a multi-million-pound business. And the reason why they're asking for this information here is so that they can start to track, the Scottish Government looks at statistics and things like that, how many SMEs are they awarding contracts to. Financial standing maybe does come in at some point, but that for the purposes of this question, this is just to go into the stats. And then, sorry, I'm just going to go down to the other questions. So the next part is if you are bidding as part of a group or a consortium. I don't know if anyone here is doing that, but that would be like, it could be if there was 10 individual taxi drivers who all had their own business, might want to collaborate and form a consortium to submit a bid together, because individually they maybe can't meet the requirements, but collectively maybe they can. So that would be what that would mean. So if that is something that you're doing, you would be saying yes to that question, and then you're going to provide more information about how that's going to be set up, who else is involved in that. If you say no, that's it. There's no other information that you need to answer there. The next question, sometimes people get a bit confused about this because it's kind of asking the same stuff, but this is about you as an individual, not your business necessarily. So it's a bit cheeky. It asks for your date of birth, and I'm a bit like, maybe I don't want to tell people my date of birth. But yeah, it's just asking for information about you as an individual. Who is it that's filling in this tender? And then, are you reliant on the capacities of other entities for meeting the selection criteria? So again, that would be if you are bidding with other people. It could be if you're using subcontractors, if it's them that's meeting the selection criteria, not yourself. So that would be maybe if, like, I just decided that I wanted to tender for this and I was going to subcontract it to, you know, a bunch of taxi drivers, for example, then I would be relying on your capacity to be able to actually deliver this contract. And all I would be doing is coordinating it. The other question is subcontractors on whose capacity the bidder does not rely. So that is if you're using subcontractors, but you already meet the selection criteria in your own right. So you're already a taxi firm, but you're subcontracting it to a taxi driver, for example. So if you're going to say yes to this question, again, it's going to ask you for information on who are the subcontractors that you're going to be using. And there is also then a single procurement document, excuse me, that needs to be completed. And if I just jump back to the documents that I've downloaded, there is also a, sorry, I can't talk and press buttons at the same time, but there is a subcontractor schedule, which I'll just show you. And you're going to fill that in and upload that. So the registered name and number of your subcontractor, what it is that they're providing, and the anticipated value that you would be putting through them in relation to that particular lot. So hopefully that makes sense. And I will just jump back. If you see against the question this little, I don't know what it is it like a little black triangle with an exclamation mark in it? That means there's a document here that you can download. So most of the documents are in that Documents tab that we looked at already. But if we click on this one, this would open up that SPD document. I don't think it's going to let me share that actually. How can I share that? I think I need to.
If you're sharing your screen, Mandy, just pull it in. Just pull the document out the screen.
Yeah, it just it seems to only let me. I don't know. It doesn't seem to let me do that. Hang on, I'm just trying to. I'll do that at the end just to show you what that looks like. But basically, what they're having to do within it's an Excel document, and they're basically having to fill in the same information that you're filling in on this PCST portal. It's all the information about them as a business, and then some of the exclusion grounds, which we'll go on to talk about. Just remind me, Fran, to try and share that at the end, just so that people know what that looks like. But just if you see that little black triangle, that means there's something that you need to download. Okay, and you would just then re-upload that once you'd filled it in. The next section is exclusion grounds. So basically the public sector have got mandatory exclusion grounds, and that basically means that if you say yes to something on this mandatory exclusion ground list, they are not allowed to award a contract to you. So that is things like terrorist offences, serious and organised crime, for example. They also then have discretionary exclusion grounds. So that's let's see an example. So yeah, the mandatory ones are things like conspiracy and terrorism and money laundering. Hopefully none of you guys have been involved in any of that. And I always think, who's going to say yes if they have? But yeah, you need to be obviously truthful in answering those questions. So we go on to so those are just a drop down, so you just say yes or no to them, and that's it. And if you said yes to those, you just wouldn't be considered any further. So an example of a discretionary ground is, have you breached your obligations in relation to environmental law? So hopefully you're going to say no to that. But if you did say yes to that question, what it allows you to do is to provide some more information about that. So it could be that there's something happened 10 years ago and you were in breach of environmental law. So you would provide information. When did it happen? What was the situation? What happened? What have you done to rectify that situation, basically? And we call this self-cleansing questions. And what was the measures that were taken. So what happens in that situation, because it is a discretionary exclusion ground, the buyer can exclude you because you've said yes, but they can also consider your self-cleansing response, and they can make a decision on, is that a good enough response? Have you done enough to make sure that's not going to happen again? Does it assure them that you've cleansed yourself of your sins, basically, is the situation. So what I would say is, please be honest when it comes to these questions, because I have had situations where we've almost been about to award a contract. This is when I was on the buying side of things. And then when we've done the due diligence, we've identified that these questions have not been answered truthfully. And at that point, we wouldn't progress with that contract award. However, if the self-cleansing information had been provided, we might have accepted that at that stage. So just be honest on that. So you've got the mandatory exclusion grounds, just yes, no, and then you've got the discretionary ones, again, yes, no, but if you say yes to it, it then gives you extra boxes that you need to complete with your information. So hopefully that's fairly straightforward.
Quick question, Mandy.
Yeah.
Would it be subcontracting if I bid and my wife or other family members? So would it be subcontracting if I bid and the wife does the contract or another family member?
Is it all part of the one company? Like,
They've
are they people employed by the one company?
Des, I'm going to take you off mute. I'll just get a wee bit more information from you. So you'll see the unmute go across your screen. Just click on it.
Yeah, they're all working for the same company, yeah.
Yeah, so that wouldn't be subcontracting. That would just be that they're working on behalf of your company. Where it might be subcontracting is, you know, if you've got your family members working within your business, but you've then maybe got a friend who has got their own business, but you want to use them to sort of boost your capacity, for example, and you were maybe just bringing them in on an ad hoc basis. They would be classed as a subcontractor because they're not employed by you, basically. So that's when they would then need to be included in that schedule, and they would need to fill in that single procurement document. So again, they're then answering all these same questions that they've not been involved in any like dodgy dealings and things like that. So it's making sure that the people in your business, but also anyone that you might be subcontracting to, is companies that the council wants to work with, basically.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
That makes sense. Right, I'm just trying to find my screen that I was on now. You can tell that I'm not very good about this, jumping between screens thing. Right, okay. So we're still on the discretionary exclusion ground, so I'll just flick past them, but they're fairly straightforward in terms of you'll know if you have been involved in any of this stuff or you've not. But it's just worth explaining that you can do that self-cleansing. Excuse me. And you would just ask to note any conflicts of interest. So that could be that your cousin works on the procurement team at North Lanarkshire Council. That would be a conflict of interest. So you're going to say yes to that. You're going to provide that information there. You wouldn't be excluded from that process as a result of that. What would generally happen is that person would not be allowed to be involved in the procurement process. And it would be documented. Most of the councils have like a conflict of interest register, so it would be documented what that conflict of interest was. And again, it's best to be upfront if there is anything like that. And have you influenced what the tender says? So hopefully you're going to say no to that. And then they want to know if you've had any previous contracts terminated. So if you had previously had a contract with South Lanarkshire and you weren't performing on that, for example, and the contract was terminated, this is the information that they want to know here. Again, please answer it honestly. I have also had the situation where someone has said no to that question, and then at the award stage they've been excluded from the process. And again, this is one where you can do that self-cleansing, so you can talk about this is why it was terminated and here's what we've done to rectify the situation going forward. Okay, so I'll skip down past those. So financial, economic and financial standing. So this is basically where they're going to look at your financial stability. Now, I am not an accountant, so I do not understand what these ratios mean. And any time when I've worked in procurement, we've put these requirements into the tenders based on what our accountants have told us is how they want to evaluate the financial standing, and they've then evaluated it when it's came back in. But the important thing is they're very clear on what is it that you have to meet. So that the acid test ratio must be 1 or above. Now, you probably, I mean, I don't want to assume, but you probably don't know what that means as much as I don't. This would be one to take to your accountant for them to look at. So you're going to get them to have a look and provide the relevant information. But also, if your acid test ratio was less than 1, you don't meet the selection criteria then. So the outcome of that is you can't be considered for this tender, so you don't then want to go ahead and fill in any of the rest of it. Or you could use that Q&A functionality and you could challenge that requirement and ask the council if they'll consider whatever your scenario is. And sometimes they will change their requirements if that's going to unnecessarily exclude people. Or sometimes they'll just say, no, you need to meet that, and if you don't, you can't be considered. So it's worth finding out where you sit on that before you then fill in the rest of the documents. And then it goes on to talk about the insurance requirements that you need to have in place. So if you have these in place at the moment, that's great. If you don't have them in place, you can commit to obtaining them, and you wouldn't have to do that until you were actually awarded onto the framework. So say you've got public liability at the moment, but it's only 5 million. You don't have to go out and put it up to 10 million just now, but you can commit to obtaining it, and then only if you're successful would you have to do that. Anywhere it says, is the relevant documentation available electronically? That would be for things where like they can go online and find out the information. So you just say any in any of those boxes, and if you don't populate those boxes, it's going to tell you that there's missing information. So just say any within those boxes. So then we're going on to technical and professional ability. Excuse me. And what they're asking for here is for you to provide relevant examples of similar services that you've carried out over the last 3 years. So basically, within the last 3 years, have you been delivering a similar type of service, which could be to other councils or other organisations, it could be private businesses, whatever, but they just want to know that you have been providing similar services. And again, you're going to click on to that little upside down triangle, and that's going to give you a template to complete. Let me just see if I can open up that template. Everything seems to be a little bit slow tonight. Maybe they're thinking, why are you working at this time? It's dinner time. No, it's not letting me open that. Right. If I struggle, Fran, I might send these over to you, but I'll try at the end. But basically what that is you're going to provide 2 relevant examples of similar types of contracts or arrangements that you've got in place. And you provide that within a template. And basically what that template asks you for is who was the client, what was the value of the contract, and what is the basic description of what was delivered under that. So it's contract title, contract value, dates, customer name, address, customer contact, and a detailed overview of the requirements within the contractual agreement. So when you are writing details of what you delivered for your other customer, just bear in mind what it is that the council are asking you to do, and you want to try and link that as much as possible. So you want to demonstrate that you've got capability to deliver what they're asking you for, basically. Okay, let me just go back. They then ask about what supply chain management and tracking systems are in place. This is a standard question, so it might not make that much sense to you. But the main thing that they're asking for here is what is the payment terms, and are you paying your invoices within 30 days? So basically they want to make sure that if you are using any subcontractors, that they're getting paid promptly within the same sort of terms that you're going to get under this framework. And again, it then asks again about subcontracting, and this time it's what percentage of the contract you're going to subcontract. And then finally, you've just got a declaration. This is basically once you've finished all this section, you just sign it off with your name, who you are, the date, and where you are when you submit it. And then anytime you're coming out of here, you just select save and exit response. So if we had actually filled everything in here, it would this would be clear. It wouldn't be shown that there was anything else to fill in. So you can come in and out of that as many times as you need to till you've actually completed it. And then we're going to move on to the technical response. So the qualification response is really, that's all the sort of pass-fail stuff. And if you pass, they'll then look at the technical response. If there's something in that qualification response where you fail, you don't meet the criteria, they wouldn't then look at your technical response. So hopefully that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions about the selection part before we move on to the technical?
No, but Kieran was telling us that he's currently doing a transport manager course, and the asset test ratio means that your assets are more than your liabilities.
Good. I'm glad someone knows. I knew it was something to do with that, but I didn't want to explain it in case I got it wrong. So thank you for that. Right, okay. So if we go to the technical response now, it's giving you lots of information. So it's telling you that the quality rating is 40% and the price rating is weighting, sorry, is 60%. So that's how they're going to score your tender. Then they're getting you to confirm that you've read lots of different documents. So have you read the T's and C's? Have you read the, do you accept the T's and C's? I think you can say no to that. Or you can just say yes or no. And have you understood what the requirements are, basically? So they're hoping that you're going to say yes to all those things. And then the quality questionnaire, you're just going to upload that once you've completed that. So if we go back to look at that again, that's this document here. So you're going to complete that offline. You're going to put your answers into those little tender response boxes. And just at the end of your response, they want you to count how many words you've used, presumably so they don't have to do it. But yeah, what will happen, as I've said before, is if it's 1,500 words, they'll just stop reading. At that point, they want to keep it. It's basically to make it manageable for the evaluation panel, so they don't have too much words in there. So you're going to upload that quality questionnaire into here, and then there's some other things that just gives you a bit of a guidance on the scoring. That's also in that document as well, but it explains to you what constitutes a 0, what constitutes a 5. What a little tip that I would give. So when I'm writing tenders for myself or others, what I'll be referring back to once I've finished doing the writing is this, whatever the scoring methodology is. So for this one, they're using 0 to 5. I'll be looking at my draft and I'll be looking at, does that meet the requirements of a 5? So does it demonstrate a full understanding of the question? Has it addressed all the areas? Have we provided robust evidence and sufficient substance or detail? And is it legitimate to consider that the council wouldn't have any cause for concern. So I would be like really critically looking at my response that I've drafted and saying, is that a 5? Does it meet the requirements of a 5? Or actually, you know, a 4 says it doesn't adequately address a minority of areas. So are there any little gaps which actually makes it a 4 instead of a 5? And how would we fill in those gaps before we do the submission? So I would really recommend that you do that. You can basically pretend that you're the buyer. You're going to work from this evaluation methodology, this scoring, and you're going to score your own bid, basically. Or you can ask someone else to do it, you know, like if they've maybe someone that's not like been involved in writing it. If you've got someone else that works in your business, for example, but they're not doing the writing, give them this scoring methodology and say, can you please just review that based on this and tell me where it falls down from being a 5? And that's quite a helpful process. Okay, and then they're just telling you a bit more about how they're going to score it. And then you have to say, yes, that you understand how they're going to score your quality submission. So that's just a yes or no. Excuse me. So the next section is about community benefits, and there is a document on community benefits as well, which I'll open up in a second. So they're asking you to review Annex 2, which is the community benefits, and you need to download and complete the community benefit offering menu. So I'll open that up in a second. And they're going to score you based on the community benefits that you're saying that you're going to provide. And if you provide the number of points that they're asking you to provide, you get 100% for that. If you don't want to deliver any community benefits, you'll get 0 for that question, so you'll lose 2% of the overall marks. They're not saying they're going to exclude you from the process on that basis. So you either want to put in community benefits, or if you don't, you recognise that you're going to get 0 for that. So you just need to confirm that you accept that. And then the next section is the pricing document, which is Annex 5. So this is where you're putting in your pricing, or you're confirming that you understand the price schedule information. And again, they're just wanting you to confirm that you understand how they're going to go do that scoring process. So there's a lot of things where they're saying, we want to make sure you know what's been asked of you. So then you're going to select what lots that you're going to bid for. And what that's going to do is, that's then going to open up additional questions below that are specific to the lot that you're interested in bidding for. So if you're going for all 5, you obviously tick all 5. If you just want to go for 1, that's absolutely fine, you can do that. Okay, and then they have got specific questions that you need to respond to for each of those lots. So you need to download, again, there's that upside down black triangle. You've got a community benefit menu for each lot, and you've got a price schedule for each lot. That's where you're putting your pricing in. And then they've got a total sum, which you're going to put into that box, but that's going to come from that spreadsheet. And I'll open these up at the end, let you have a look at them. And again, you're just going to have that for every lot. So if you just selected 1, you just answer that once. If you selected all lots, you're going to provide that for each lot. I'll just flip right down and pass them because it's just the same information. Okay, and then they're asking about your operator's licence. So they want to see a copy of your PSV operator's licence or a suitable equivalent. And then they want a document that details what your existing fleet is. So they want to know the number of vehicles, the size of the vehicles, and you don't need to provide like manufacturer model. It's basically just how many you've got and what size are they, how many seats are in them. They're also asking for PVG confirmation. So one of the requirements is to make sure that all members who are going to be involved in delivering this have had the PVG and have also undergone protection or safeguarding training relevant to working with protected adults, children and young people. So you at this stage are confirming that you will facilitate that you're going to make sure everybody's got that in place, and then at a later date, if you were awarded onto the framework, they're going to ask you to provide evidence of that. So like, for example, you might have someone working with you at the moment that's not involved in delivering this type of contract, so they don't need to have a PVG or that safeguarding training, but you intend to use them if you're successful in that framework. So you don't necessarily need to have the PVG for them right now, but you need to put it in place before the framework starts, and you would be expected to provide that evidence. Okay, sorry, I've got a really itchy nose. Okay, so you're going to answer the question around DPIS declaration. So what measures you are going to put in place to make sure all information and data shared by the council is going to be secured. And if we go back to the documents, there's guidance in relation to that, and also that you have read that information. So basically, you're going to be transporting generally vulnerable people, and they want to make sure that those people's data is protected, and that you've got sufficient measures in place to make sure that happens. They would then want to know a bit about your workforce, so how many people work within your business. Do you have a office or depot located within North Lanarkshire? And do you consider yourself to be a start-up business? And again, that information is going to be used in terms of the statistics so that they can see what types of organisations are they delivering, are they awarding contracts to, sorry. They also want to know if you're a third sector organisation. So are you a charity? Probably not. Are you a supported business? So a supported business is a business that predominantly employs disabled people or people from disadvantaged backgrounds. So they want to know that information. How many people do you employ? And is that not the same question? How many employees does the tender employ? How many people do you employ? And then how many would be employed on this particular agreement? Sorry, I could not make sense of that there. They want to know about 0 hours contracts, if that forms any element of your business, and how many employees are going to be employed on that basis. They would like to know that you're paying people the real living wage, so providing some information on that. Are you a relevant commercial organisation under the Modern Slavery Act? You're probably not, because I think the threshold's about 35 million. Maybe you are, but I'm going to assume no, so you just say no to that. And then there is a serious and organised crime declaration form. So you need to make sure that you confirm that you have read and understand that, and that the council can then request that all individuals complete that declaration, and that's something that that they can work with the police on in terms of getting an understanding if any individuals have been involved in serious and organised crime. So it's basically just giving permission to have that access. This is where you would put that subcontractor form. So there's the SPD spreadsheet, which is at the question where you downloaded that from. And I'll try and open that up at the end. And then there's the subcontractor form that you would put here. And that's just the list. The form of tender, that's in one of the documents that you need to complete. You would upload that here. And then there's a submission certificate. I'll open some of these documents up, but that would be uploaded here as well. So once you've completed that, all of those sections, basically that's you completed the technical part of your response, and you're just going to save that. And once you have done both of these sections, as I said, the responses will show as 0, there's nothing missing, and then you can simply just submit your response. If you try and do that before you've filled everything in, it won't let you submit it, as I said earlier. If you submit it and then you think, oh, I've missed something, or I want to add something in, you can actually withdraw your submission. So once you've submitted, a little button will appear and it says withdraw. You can do that, make the changes, and then resubmit it, as long as you do it by the closing date, of course. And even if you're 1 minute past the closing date, the system doesn't allow you to submit it. It automatically locks you out from that. So that is a whistle-stop tour of PCS tender and how you're going to fill stuff in. I'm just going to go back to the list of documents and see if there's anything that would be important to mention. So we've looked at the requirements document, the community benefits information is important. Right, I need to figure out. Fran,
I'm here.
you're there. Can I send you these documents and see if you can share them? I don't know why it's not letting me. I don't know why it's not letting me up, but you know me with technology, so it's probably me.
I suspect you're maybe sharing the application rather than the screen.
Right,
That's
okay, right. Maybe you can tell me how to fix that then. Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah,
Right,
well, you're doing that. Stop sharing, yeah, and then when you're sharing, choose the screen. So it'll show you
entire
all the
screen.
Yeah,
Right.
perfect.
Oh no, it's not letting me do that.
No,
Oh, right, okay. There we go.
sorry.
That was me. That was me. Right, so I'm just going to go into my downloaded documents. So, excuse me. So the first one was the subcontractors SPD document. So if you have subcontractors that are going to be put forward as part of this, they would need to complete this document, and you're going to have to upload that with your response. So if you are going to be doing that, I would suggest get onto that right now, send that out to them, because it's obviously, people are busy and it takes a lot of chasing sometimes to get them to fill in these forms. So get that sent out as soon as possible. It's quite clear here, the optional responses are in blue, the mandatory stuff's in yellow. So they need to make sure they're filling in all the yellow stuff. And it is just information about them, information about the bidder, who are they, what's their legal status, what type of organisation are they, and then it goes into those exclusion grounds again. So just all the same stuff that you've had to answer, but they basically have to do it in a spreadsheet rather than within the system. The technical experience form, so this is where you're providing your examples of previous contracts that you've held. And it's actually only asking for one example. Sorry, I said 2 earlier because that's normally how many they ask for. So you just need to provide one example over the past 3 years. And again, it's details about the contract, and then you're providing an overview of what was it that you delivered for that client, basically. And as I said, if you can try and align that as much as possible with what North Lanarkshire Council are asking you to do here, that demonstrates to them that you can do it basically. So like if you've had customer, say for example, you've had a contract with like a care home or something like that, you're transporting vulnerable clients, you need to maybe have a PVG check, there's the data thing's really important, like you would be documenting that kind of stuff in here, and that's showing them that you've done similar type of stuff before. Okay, and then the other one I just wanted to show you was the community benefit menu. So sorry, I've got the itchiest nose ever. I just keep feeling like I'm going to sneeze, but it's not coming out. So in the community benefit menu, basically what you're going to do is you are going to decide what community benefits that you would like to offer if you're successful with this framework, and each community benefit gets a number of points. So what they're saying is you want to be providing 4 community benefit points. So you need to select something that at least adds up to 4 basically. And as I say, you could select none, but you're just going to get 0 for that question. So it could be a new job. So if you're going to actually employ someone new as a result of being awarded onto this framework, you select, like, so if you maybe wanted to employ someone from a priority group, so that could be like a long-term unemployed person, for example, you would then get 4 points for that if you were employing them part-time, or 6 if you were employing them full-time, and that's you basically met the requirements there. So you just get to choose, what ones you want to deliver, and then they want them to add up to 4. I think that's all the important stuff. Price and schedule. Excuse me. So there's a pricing schedule for each lot. It explains in a bit of detail how you're going to put your pricing in. And it's basically, you know, you've got cost per mile, and it depends on what it is that you're doing. There's waiting charges, all that type of stuff. You guys will be hopefully familiar with that type of thing. And then once you've input all that information, it's going to work out what your total sum is for that lot, and that's what's going to be evaluated against your competitors, basically. Okay, so I think that's everything that we needed to cover. Does anybody have any questions, or does anybody want me to go back into any of the documents or anything like that?
We do have some questions I'm going to talk through, but while we do that, get you to go back into, so that was us doing the ad hoc minibus and coaches. Can I get you to go back in now and do the minibus? No, the taxis, because Ian's got a question about taxis, and if you go back through, then we'll be able to see what we're doing. So the taxi question was, for the taxi contracts, do the vehicles have to be licensed taxis, i.e. plated? I currently operate from home to school contracts for NLC, and they don't require vehicles to be plated.
Right, okay. Right, let me...
So while you're going back into PCA, I'll leave the recording on so that we can see what you're doing.
Yeah, that's fine. I will go and find that.
There's another, while we're watching this, guys, well, you're not sharing just now, Mandy. While we're watching this, I'll read out the other questions that are coming through.
So,
oh, Mark's saying, where is the document? Sorry, for tendering for pricing. So we missed where the spreadsheet was.
Right, let me go in. I'll just go into the taxi one and I'll be able to show you that, because it'll be the same sort of setup. And then just let me share my screen. Right. Where is... Oh, there we go. Right, so I forgot it was in the technical section. Let me just find that.
It's worth noting too that the taxi contract is 100% quality with regards to the valuations, but the minibuses and coaches are 60% price, 40% quality, just so that you're aware, guys.
Yeah, good shout on that. Right, yeah. So the reason for that is because they're operating based on fixed meter rates. So for the taxi one, there's then not a price schedule basically. So they're telling you what the price should be, if that makes sense. So that's not a good one to show you how to find the price schedule. Let's just go back out and find the correct one. So on the other one, on to that. And then again, if I go into the technical response, so under each lot that we selected, do you know how we selected the lot and then it gave us those extra questions underneath? So under each lot, there is a price schedule response, and next to the question, there's that little upside down black triangle. So that's what you need to click, and that downloads that document, and then that's what you then need to fill in. So that's how you access the price schedule. I hope that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. And what we witnessed there was that Mandy's got them all saved into a folder in her system, so that all of the documents that she downloaded were all together, and that made it much easier for demonstration purposes. But I think that would also make it much easier for you guys too if you've got them all in the one place, and you can pull them back.
I'll show you actually just I'll show you like the way that in fact, I'm not going to be able to do that. But basically, the way I structure it is I have a folder that says downloaded from PCST, and then I'll have a draft 1 folder, and then I'll have a draft 2 folder, and then I'll have a final upload folder. So basically, just sort of structure the folder in that way, and that's quite helpful. And then I have in the sort of main folder, I've got that spreadsheet that's got like, this is all the things that need to be completed. I'm just trying to go back into the. I want to go back into the tax one because I don't actually know the answer to that question about the plates, but it's probably in the requirements.
It might be that I'll try and do Q&A, Mandy. It might be quicker to put it to Q&A and let North Lanarkshire Council just confirm exactly what we need to do here.
Yeah, I'm thinking it's probably something that is included in the requirement section, but I'll just double check that.
Kieran also said, if a tenderer has plans to expand before the contract starts, is there a mechanism to allow this at tender stage?
Yes, and what I would be doing then is putting that into your community benefit response. So as a result of that framework, you've basically created jobs, and they like that, they want to see that. So I would definitely say that that is something that's looked upon positively. So they want to know that you've got a decent basis. So you're looking at providing that previous example. But yes, absolutely, they would be happy for you to grow as well. And as I say, that would then count as a community benefit point that you're creating jobs within the local area. So they'd definitely like to see that.
Yeah, but you just had to clarify these operator licenses, but assume everything you've said still clarifies. As I currently have restricted licenses with 2 desks, but I have applied to move to a standard national license with core or more desks. I think that's meant to be on core.
Let me read that because I need to
make sense of it. Yeah.
To clarify, I mean operator. So this is not. Is this relating to the same question as the plates?
This is the one. No, this was the one that if tender plans to expand before the contract is a mechanism to allow it at tender stage. You were saying you use it as community benefits, and he's saying I mean operator licenses, but operators are drivers. So yeah, that's exactly that works. Community benefit. Mark was saying, how do we show people are PVG scheme members? Do you put in their number, or how is this done? You actually brought up a forum just after the question came in from Mark. You brought up the forum and it was talking about the PVG, so I suspect that's where it goes.
And it's basically at this stage they're looking for you to let me see. they're just looking for you to confirm that you do that. You make sure people have got those PVG checks and they've had that training. But if you were successful, they're going to actually want to know exactly who's going to be working on these contracts, and they're going to want to see their PVG checks and what training that they've had. Sorry, Kieran, I think we're getting you mixed up. So no, there was a question about showing the operator licence. Mine currently has 2 discs, but we'll have more at the start of the contract. So, right, where was that question? Let's go back and look at that question. And we can see what that says. Generally speaking, if it's something that's a requirement, they will allow you to put it in place for the contract starting, even if you don't have it in place at the moment. So likes of the insurance requirements, they'll let you have it in place for the framework starting. But I don't know about that specific one. So that might be something that you want to ask as a clarification question via the portal. But let me just see if I can find that question and see the exact wording of it. So is this the PSV operator's licence? Is that the right thing?
That was
Sorry.
Mark's question, yes. How do we show people are PVG scheme members? Do you put their number in, or how is this done?
No, sorry, I was answering Kieran's question about the licence. So it is regarding that. Yes, Kieran, I would ask that question within the clarification thing. I think it's basically saying you need to provide a copy. So what you're saying just now is you don't have that licence at the moment to be able to provide that copy. What they'll probably allow you to do is provide the whatever it is that you have at the moment, and then confirmation that you're going to have that licence in place if successful. I think that's how they'll address that, but I would just put that back to them and say, like, what do you want us to do on that? I definitely don't think it's something where they would exclude you from the process or anything like that. Right, okay.
Jane says thank you.
For price and mark. I think that might be all the questions. And the thing about the PVG scheme members, so it doesn't ask you to provide people's numbers at this stage, but that's something, as I say, you would be asked to do if you were successful. Living in this contract. Okay. I think that's all the questions. Does anybody have anything else that they wanted to ask?
Mark was asking, is there a reason why this is so different from normal SPT school contracts? Is this how all future SPT contracts will be done moving forward? Or is it just these contracts?
I don't know. I've had no involvement in the SPT school contracts, to be honest with you. So the answer is, I don't know. I don't know how they were facilitated previously. Certainly, I have worked with clients tendering for other council contracts for other councils, and it's been a similar approach to this, but I don't know what the SPT setup was, to be honest.
We do the training with SPT, but it's Kenny Govan, it's the procurement officer at SPT that does the training with us, Mandy. So that's why you wouldn't have been involved in this, because they do their own training. Sorry, Mark, I'm not in a position to answer that, but if you want further information, we can certainly put you in touch with Kenny Govan.
Okay. Is that all? Nobody's got any other questions? Are we all okay?
Ask another question, or if you've asked a question and it's not been answered properly, because there was a wee bit of a mix-up. I think Kieran's questions were coming in too fast.
Yeah, I think we tied ourselves up in knots for that one, didn't we? So hopefully, yeah, if you're still unclear about anything, just let us know.
If your question's not been answered, now's the time to ask again. Put your wee hand up in the reactions and we'll just take you off mute. I think that would be so much easier than us trying to work it out. Just chat. Just do that. There's Kevin coming in. Hi, Kevin. The request to unmute is coming across to you now. Just click on it when you see it on your screen. Oh, no, does Kevin just load his hand?
Oh,
there we go. Hi.
Yeah. Hello.
Hi, Mandy. I'll tell you what I was right. See, regarding the contract for the buses, then it says 4 to 17 starts off lot 1. Now, if it's like 9-seater minibuses, like 8 seats passengers, would you get at this end with the buses, or would you get in the taxi side of it?
Sorry, can you say that again? So,
Right. So what I've got taxis, right, and I've got cars. It's obviously, and I've got like kind of 9-seater minibuses, 8 passengers. So what I'm looking there is, it says obviously lot 1 there for the buses would be 4 to 17 seats. So would I just go in there with and just let them know how many seats I've got available in the buses, or would I be going into tender for the taxi side there for 8 seats?
so it's almost like there's a crossover, isn't there? It's like you could
Aye, that's
put
it.
in for both of them, couldn't you?
Yeah.
I think maybe you should ask a question on the bus one
Right.
and ask them, you know, like, should you bid for both of those tenders? Because I'm wondering if maybe you're going to put in for the minibus and the taxi one.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, it sounds like there is a crossover there.
Right. So just ask the question then.
Yeah, I would definitely get some clarification from them on that. Let me just go back to the lot so I can look at exactly what it says.
There's made a wee note too saying, Kevin said, should he bid for both taxi and bus contracts because you've got machines that have got 4 seats? Is that what we're saying?
Aye. So I've got obviously
It's,
cars.
because
I've got
it's,
a taxi, and I've got 9-seater buses.
it is quite a funny one, isn't it? Because like I wouldn't class a 4-seated vehicle as a minibus, I don't
No.
think.
Aye. That's that. So taxi then.
So
See.
I'm wondering if their definition's wrong, but maybe we could just clarify lot 1,
Yeah.
because like a 4-seater vehicle to me is a car.
What's that?
Unless I'm just being really daft, you know. So I think maybe what you would want to do is put in a question to say, for lot 1, is 4 to 16 seats correct? And if so, you know, what is it? You've got 8 seats. Did you say 7 seats?
8 passengers.
Yeah. Should you be bidding for that? Because I can see why 8 passengers might be classed as a minibus, but 4 seems a bit strange, doesn't it? So I would definitely suggest asking a question on that. And it might be that you end up that you want to bid for both of those lots, so you're basically having to do that process twice, but hopefully a lot of it's the same stuff, so hopefully it wouldn't be too onerous for you.
Right, that's excellent, Monday. Thank you.
Perfect, Kevin.